Hi, this is JMD Mateus, and you are listening to the All Stars Superfan Podcast.
We talk Superman, and we know what's happening. We talk Superman, and we cover everything.
Goodbye and unwelcome to the All-Star Superfan Podcast, the podcast that does not explore the full 85-year multimedia legacy of the Man of Steel. Me no am Rob O'Connor, your host, and you am not invited to join me for a very unspecial discussion with Bizarro actor Douglas Barry Meyers. Excuse me. Please forget that you can like us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and BLUESKY at All Star Superfan. Don't follow us on Twitter at All Star Superpod, and be sure to stay away from the Inside the All Star Superfan podcast group on Facebook. If you am not a big fan of Superboy the series, don't join our Patreon, patreon.com/All-Star Superfan, for the low price of just $3 a month, where you can follow along as we rewatch each and every episode of the forgotten Superboy series, as we jump around between the different eras of the show. But for now, please don't enjoy this not wonderful discussion I had with actor and performer Douglas Barry Meyers. We always like to ask our guests on this show, what would have been your experience with Superman prior to all of this? Did you read comics? Did you watch the movies, the George Reeves show? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yes, I did watch the George Reeves show when I was growing up because age-wise, yes, I go back that far. But other than that, I mean, I guess I was just like any other, boy, loving Superman and, wanting to be a superhero. We always kind of want to do that. So once I actually got the part, it was an amazing experience to be able to be that superhero that you always dreamed of as a kid. So yeah, I guess I did watch. I mean, I watched the show and did some comics, but I wasn't like a Superman fan. I was just a kid that loved superheroes.
Yeah, so sometimes that can be better when you come into something as big as this, not to have that huge weight of expectation and all that. It's just another job nearly. Is that kind of thing?
Yeah, it was that kind of thing. And for me, I mean, I'd never heard of the character Bizarro until I was on that, and I mean, the character itself comes, I believe, from the 1956 comic books. So
that's right.
Yeah, that was a few years before my time, but yeah, so I didn't know who Bizarro was. So it was fun trying to create him.
I was going to ask you that, yeah. Did you know? Because I'm not sure. I'm sure you've been made aware of this, but Bizarro in your show is the best version of Bizarro they've ever done in any of the shows.
I've heard that.
They really treated it with respect and care, and they really got the most out of it. Whereas in a lot of the other subsequent Superman shows, it sort of feels almost like an afterthought,
Well, and that's something that was going to be very interesting is after we finished the show and they were going to start working on the next Superman movie. I've known Ilya Salkind since day one of Bizarro, and that's a cute story, a good story too. But he was he was telling me he was actually going to probably make Bizarro the next movie. And then they sold the franchise. They did this, they did that, and there went Bizarro's debut on film.
Oh my goodness! I never heard that one before. That is insane. We actually did speak to Ilya about his plans to make a fifth Superman and all that kind of stuff. Bizarro never came up, I'm afraid, but that is amazing if he kind of had that on his radar. I want to get back to Bizarro and Superboy and everything else in a moment. I want to talk about your acting experience prior to the show, because you have a couple of interesting credits, and I've heard you talk about something which I think probably factors into Bizarro a bit as well. Can you talk about that?
So basically, how I actually got the job as Bizarro was through a character that I created probably four years before that, called Mr. Silver, the robotic performer. So I was the world's only robotic magician for over 35 years, probably even still today if I went back and did it. But so it was I moved moved like a robot. I was the very first silver street performer back then, back in 1987 when I created Mr. Silver, and it was really just starting off just having fun and trying to make some extra money. I was a cruise director on the cruise ships from 1980 to 85. In 1983, I was the youngest cruise director in the world. So when I got off
Wow.
the ships in 80, yeah, and when I got off the ships in 85, I was looking how. So I started doing. I was doing more magic, and I was doing this and that, and I was, just. I was at the time 25, 26 years old. So where do I go from here? And I put on a silver makeup and went down to the outdoor mall in Miami. And it was crazy because I did some other characters there before, some mannequin type, characters that I was good at. Because I was always a dancer. I've been a dancer, professional dancer since I was 17, but I've been a dancing fool since I was probably 5 or 6 years old. So this character brought in the robotics of it all. And when they were looking for the character of Bizarro, my casting director in Miami, I was already starting to get kind of famous because everybody went down to this outdoor mall called Bayside, which was a great, great place. And then they'd see Mr. Silver, on the weekends, and I'd perform and just had a great time. But so they were looking for somebody who was my size, the same as Gerard, 6'1", and the same build and all that. And they said, but they have to have some kind of robotic moves
Mm.
because they wanted Bizarro to be stiff and that, kind of all that things. So so that's when the casting director, I know who to call. So
Yeah.
they called me. When I went down to the casting, it was really kind of funny because when I went into the casting room, they said, all right, so there's no script. We just want some movements and everything, but we're going to put this bag over your head first. And I'm like, excuse me?
What kind of audition is this?
They go, well, we don't really care what your face looks like because you're going to have a mask on. The person will have a mask on and everything. We want the
Mm.
moves. So the moves got me the job, and then I guess the acting got me the more episodes. But there's one little story that somebody else asked me not too long ago because they're writing a book now on the Superboy thing, and I thought it was
Oh,
a
amazing.
very interesting question. And it was, how did I actually create Bizarro's voice and walk and everything? And the funny story about that is I had no clue of what they wanted, anything. So we were starting to shoot on Monday. So they flew me and Rob in early on a Sunday, and they wanted to do a makeup test, make
Mm.
sure all looks good and everything, everybody was happy. And I think before we did the makeup test, now this is a Sunday at Universal Studios in the big offices and everything, and nobody's around but just a few of us. All right. And all of a sudden, one of the assistants comes up to me and says, oh, Mr. Salkind would like to meet with you in 20 minutes and go over the voice and the movements. My head exploded. What? What? And I mean, again, I still didn't even really know what I was supposed to be doing as far as
Mm.
Bizarre. So I walked up and down in front of Ilya's office for 20 minutes, just, trying to figure out this character and me and Bizarro,
Oh my
and the
god.
voice. And there is a rumor too that somebody says that all of my voice in all 3 seasons is a voiceover, and that is so wrong. That
Yeah.
is a lie. It's just not true. It is my voice. Um, so when I finally got into the office and I'm meeting Ilya for the first time, the man who owns all of this,
Mm.
and he says, oh, like with his cute little accent, show me what you got, and I just went through it for a few minutes, and he goes, I love it. Sounds good. So, you walk out of the office going, I can't believe that just happened, and I made it. Okay, okay, all right, moving on. And here's another cute little story. Is the very first day, the very first scene, actually, the very first thing that I ever did was come out of that Dipsy dumpster trash can.
Yeah.
In the first episode when I come out of it, that was very scene one, day one, minute one. So that's how I started. But I think one of the most I loved breaking down the doors. So when I broke
Yes.
down the two doors in that episode, and then the Sally Jesse Raphael kind of show when I smashed that, I hit that door. I mean, they said hit it, man, and I hit it. But when my first, that I think it was the first or second day of all that filming, when I got to go through those two doors after kidnapping Lana at the little uh, that little store, furniture store. It was a little furniture store. When it had rained outside, so the sidewalk was completely wet and everything, and it had just finished raining. And they said, when we roll action, you hit those two doors, and whatever it takes, go through them. Just go through them. And I stood back there when they said action, and I was pumping, pumping, pumping like this. And when I turned around and I hit those doors, I don't even hardly remember it because it was just, my head was just get through those doors. And then when I got out, I had to stop on the sidewalk, and it was slippery, and then all of a sudden they're shooting at me. It was kind of almost a dream come true as a little kid. I smashed through these doors. The cops were, shooting bullets at me. I shoot my laser beams up at them. I pull the car over. I mean, it was like, how much more fun can you have,
Yes.
trying to act all that a superhero out? It was amazing.
The listeners can't hear this, but you just puffed your chest out and you looked exactly the same as you did on the show. It was incredible.
I like
love
to
it.
be consistent, it's okay. I did play Caliban on the Superboy as well.
Oh, he's got something.
Oh, wait. Ta-da!
Oh my
Whoops.
goodness.
There it
Caliban.
is. Caliban. And actually, Doug, and you, Caliban, and
There's
you.
me.
No.
Yeah, my reflection is on Caliban's
Yeah.
face. I love it.
No, I would show you. This is on my computer, but over here in the corner of my house is actually, maybe I can show you a little bit. Let's
Oh,
see.
lovely. Yeah. Oh, look at that. Incredible.
Yeah, Mr. Silver's up there, Bizarro, Gerard, and I've got more stuff to actually put up there too. But yeah,
That is
that's my
awesome.
that's my Bizarro corner.
Amazing. When we spoke to Gerard before, he has a whole man cave full of Superboy stuff, but he sort of
Oh yeah.
swore us to secrecy a little bit. We were only allowed to talk about so much because he has so much incredible stuff. I was trying to count up all the episodes you were in. I think it's something like 8 or 9. Is that right?
Physically, yes, it was nine episodes physically, but they call it 12 because of the other ones that they look back and I was in. So they use my likeness in other episodes.
Of course, the clip shows. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was good.
In terms of the production, I've spoken to both Gerard and John Newton, who played Superboy in season 1. I do get the impression, I say this with love, that the scale of the production was very fast and loose in a sense. Would I be right in saying that? Like that, I've heard John describe it as that they were nearly learning how to make a TV show as they went along, and both actors have spoken about the wires nearly going horribly wrong on a couple of occasions. Was that your experience?
Well, no. I mean, the first year with John could have been, that might have been different. Everybody was young, but I think by the time I got into it, I think they had their, their focus down and doing all their, everything, because to me, it was quite professional. We had a schedule, we stayed on schedule, and everybody just worked really, really hard to make that show a good show. And I always say it was a fun Superboy campy show, because it was back in, the late 80s, and it was a Saturday morning kind of kids show. So it was fun and campy, but it was very professional. And, I always had the best respect for everybody there.
In terms then of the makeup that had to be applied, can you talk about that process and what was involved and how long it all took?
So the makeup on was Rob Berman, who did the makeups for me for Superboy and Bizarro. It was about 2-ish hours every day, and I can tell you that Rob and I were the very first people on set every day because of that 2 hours. So it was 2 hours on and about an hour and a half off. The makeup itself is a 6-piece prosthetic makeup that goes on piece by piece. So, but the neck and the hands themselves, what was called Pax makeup. So it was a very strong liquid makeup, and then Rob would actually add adhesive to it, because in Orlando heat, I would sweat, and then all of a sudden, it would start to peel off of my hands and sometimes on my neck. So Rob was always there to touch me up and everything. But being in the makeup was an incredible thing. Mr. Silver was different. It was a silver makeup. It looked like me and
Mm,
everything. But when I got Bizarro on and I looked in the mirror, I became Bizarro.
yeah. I was going to ask you about the oppressive heat. They've both spoken to me about that before, that Gerard has described how he wasn't even allowed to sweat. I can only imagine how much worse it was with all that pile of makeup on and the prosthetics and everything else.
Well, the good factor about that is so when you're wearing a Halloween mask and you just stuck that thing on, there's a gap between your face and the mask, and that's where the heat rises up and everything. So when this is adhered to my face, it was not a heat problem like that, but that
Okay.
the suit, the cape, and all the rest of that gave you the sweat factor there. And let me
Mm.
tell you, when I was on there, they all for me and Gerard, they always had these big fans right in front of us. And when they go cut, and we'd run over to these fans and stand in front of these fans and get cooled off like this. Or if we were outside, they'd throw us into a van that was running with the air conditioner,
Mm.
or they'd always make sure that Gerard and I weren't, sweating underneath here and everything. So yeah, it was an issue, and especially with the makeup too. Like that would sweat off under the neck sometimes and the hands. So like I said, Rob was always, Johnny on the spot trying to, fix my white hands.
I wanted to know, I was thinking about this as well. I feel like other than Gerard and John from season one, in terms of people being on wires doing flying stuff, you are probably second on that list in terms of the amount of time spent on wires and flying around and cranes and all that kind of stuff. What was that like? I imagine it was kind of terrifying at times, being suspended above the ground.
It's a little bit, but again, being a dancer, I was
Yes.
also a gymnast in high school. I was state champion in the state of Florida my year. So I was used to the acrobatic part of all of that. So that didn't,
Mm,
when you pull me up 25 to 30 feet up in the air, that was a little different. But I think the worst part of all of that was the actual straps themselves that went around your
yes.
legs. And when they lifted you up, sometimes they'd go, hey, Douglas, are you ready? And I go, yep. And they start pulling up, and I go, wait, that's a little too much, because it would get right up in there, and it wasn't comfortable.
Amazing. Don't take this wrong. I can actually tell that there is at least one episode where you can see that you're being hoisted up by the briefs. And I remember thinking, God, that must have been excruciatingly painful.
The harder part was so there was I forget the episode where Gerard and I are really up in the air flying and fighting each other up in there.
Yeah.
And they shot forever doing that. So do we want to let them down? No, no, no. Keep them up for a couple more minutes. And we're going like, we're looking at each other going, no, no, take us down. Come on, please take us down. So yeah, but I will say this though, it was fun, fun, fun.
Yeah.
You're up there. And then all of a sudden I'm looking at Superboy flying at him going, oh my God, I'm gonna have a fight with this guy.
Amazing.
you know, so that was tons of fun.
If I'm not mistaken, that is Bride of Bizarro. That is in the contender for the best episode of the whole series, I think. And it's one of the ones where I point to people, I go, that's the one you want to check out. It's got everything. It's got Superboy, it's got Bizarro, it's got fights, it's got that, season 3, that kind of noir atmosphere they went for that year. I am going to ask a very specific question about that episode, and if you don't remember, that's absolutely no problem. There are a couple of shots in that where you're clearly wearing the older costume from season 1, and
Mhm.
it's. Do you remember why that was, or was it something that you were aware of at the time, that the costume was different?
I wasn't guess quite aware of it, but what I do know is that my first season suit that I wore was the stuntman suit from season 1.
Yes, that's what I
So
suspected. Yeah.
that part I know, and I guess I probably maybe got a hand-me-down from Gerard, another time because that suit was starting to get old. I know they made me new boots, so I
Mm.
had my second and third season I had brand new beautiful boots that were nicely done, and
Oh.
I know they made me a cape for that one
Mm.
as well. But yeah.
You obviously we spoke about Gerard. You got to share the screen with some of the most memorable characters on the show. Superboy, obviously, and Lana. and the great Sherman Howard who played Lex Luthor. Can you talk about how you kind of got on with those other actors and what it was like to be in scenes with them?
Well, I mean, I guess the part for me was it was my first huge big acting, and I got my SAG card through Superboy.
Oh, great.
So for me, it was really just it was really a job for me. I mean, I was there to
Mm,
do my job, and we were all to do a job. So I wasn't starstruck. I didn't know Gerard or Stacy or Sherman or any of them. So to me, at that point, we were all just actors, and
mm.
I appreciated. Stacy was amazing to help me because her especially when we had time together lines, she would come and we would run lines together. So we were on board with each other and all that. So which was really great. Gerard and I did a few times, but a lot of our scenes were kind of short and or fighting scenes,
Mm.
so we didn't have a whole lot of dialogue like Stacy and I did, like the first episode.
One thing I forgot to ask you when we were talking about the makeup, I have done some very limited screen acting myself, and one of the things I'm conscious of whenever I'm on a set is where the cameras are and where my eye line is and everything like that. I can imagine visibility was kind of impaired when you were wearing all that the mask and everything. Were you able to see where you were going?
Oh, it everything I saw perfect. I
Okay,
mean,
great.
the all of the makeup and everything. So, and the prosthetic piece kind of went up to right here at the part of my cheek, or my eye socket, you might say. So all of my eye
Mm.
socket was pretty free. It just had some white paint in it. So yeah, there was no obstructions. But I mean, because there was one time, I think it was my second. I'm not very good with what episodes I did and
Yeah, I
all
know
that.
totally. Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah,
expect you to be.
to me, I'm like an actor. When I'm, like this Superman convention is going on right now in
Mm.
Metropolis, and I was there a few years ago, and people were asking me all about episodes and stuff, and I'm going, I was an
Can't
actor.
remember.
I just enjoyed doing what I did, and I don't know any of that other
Of
stuff.
course.
But there was the episode where I was on top of the building, yeah, and so when we were shooting that. So the one part where I'm grabbing Lana and I'm bringing her down, I think I caught her in air and then I was supposed to bring her down on top of the roof. They had me on a platform that they, lifted up like this off the ground that I was standing on, and I was literally holding Stacy, and we were 4 feet from the edge of a 25-story building. My
My
heart,
goodness.
that was probably the hardest one I did out of all that, because I'm going, if I fall, I'm going to lose her, this that. So there was really that point where I'm just going, I have to hold this, I have to carry her, I have to do this, or it's all go down the go down and over the side. So yeah,
My
that was
God,
tough.
I remember I was in a musical just recently, and we had to lift one of the actresses, and like that, and your hands are just like you can't feel your hands because you're so
Yeah.
nervous and you're shaking. And this was like just on a stage. I can only imagine how much worse it was, suspended at height.
And there was no safety stuff. There was nothing. There was just nothing here. Stand on this. We're going to lift you up, and you carry Stacy. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
amazing. What one episode that I suspect you probably do remember was "To Be Human," which again is one of the best episodes of the show. We get to see the real you in that. Do you remember how that came about? Was that something that you went to them and said, "Look, guys, I really want to be myself in an episode," or did they just come to you with that and off you went?
Yeah, they just came to me with that one, and just and I didn't even really know until I got the script, which was a week ahead of time. I just knew I was going to go up and do another couple episodes and everything. So I got the script ahead of time, and but they did say when we send you the script, you're gonna enjoy it because you get to be yourself for a little bit. And I went, oh
Mm.
well, that's cool.
And what was it like as an actor then? Getting to approach that other side of Bizarro, the more human side.
Well, I've thought about that, and all I can really say, because a lot of actors are themselves in certain, TV shows and stuff like that. So
Mm.
when it got to be, Bill Zorro, it was really just Douglas, and I was just
Yeah.
doing the lines. It was so there wasn't a whole lot of thought. I was trying to think, what would I do? How would I act? And and that's what you got. I mean, it would just felt like Gerard was my brother, and I'm hey, brother, when
Yeah.
we're at the newspaper and all that, and I come in. So but it was hysterically funny and fun to go from Bizarro to that character. And here's something that I don't know if too many people know. When we were shooting the scene, and I don't know if George talked about this, but I will. When we were shooting the scene and we're in those tubes and you
Yes.
see all the smoke coming and everything, they were double tubes. So we were in a tube and then there was another tube around that. So when they shot the smoke in, it wouldn't be inside. Well, whatever happened or however it happened, it leaked. And I looked over when the smoke was coming in the tubes, and I looked over and Gerard was standing there and went boom, and he fell. I mean, he collapsed inside, and he passed out
Oh my God.
inside the tube because of all the smoke. The seal didn't work or whatever, so the smoke got inside the tube, and he actually passed out inside there.
Believe it or not, he actually told me that story as well, and I suspected it was that episode. So I'm delighted to hear that. Well, I'm not delighted that he fainted, but it's a great
No.
story. That episode is really fantastic, and I mentioned before that I don't know how familiar you are with the story Flowers for Algernon. It seems to have been based on that, where it's a character who has limited intelligence is then given much greater intelligence, and then discovers over the course of the story that they were happier the way they were. And I really like the way it ends with Bizarro returning to his former self and then learning kind of he sits down, he learns how to read and everything like that. It's really touching at the end. There is kind of a sense of finality to the character in that episode. And I wanted to know, did you get a sense that the series was winding down at that point, or did everybody think that it was going to continue on, there was going to be a fifth season and all that kind of stuff?
I think we all thought there was going to be another season.
Mm.
you know. And in as far as I know, and I've heard, the ending of all that, and why we actually did not even go into syndication, because we only had 4 years with Gerard, and Ilya didn't want to do a you can't do four. I guess it needed to be 5 seasons at that time
Mm.
to go into to replays, but so we didn't go into the repeats because there was only the 4 seasons with Gerard, or 3 seasons with Gerard, and one with the John. And I've actually never met John. I've never had the pleasure of
Mm.
meeting him, but so yeah, I mean, I thought we were going on.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's interesting because we've heard a lot over the years that Warner Brothers may have had something to do with it, and they stepped in and said that this show is not going to be repeated because they had their own Superman show they were working on. Was that something you had kind of been privy to at all?
That's what I heard a little bit later on. I think
Mm.
Gerard might have talked to, because Gerard and I we've been friends, ever since. I was at his
Amazing.
wedding. And a matter of fact, we just had lunch probably 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I live in Boone, which is up in the mountains. It's a college town up here, and he's outside of Raleigh, and that's about like 2.5 hours for me. So every
Okay.
now and then when I'm headed that way, we'll have lunch together.
That's so cool. I love that. I wanted to ask as well that there was a period where nobody, because the show didn't go into reruns, as you say, throughout the 90s. Um, I discovered the show online through these kind of fan websites and stuff because it was never showed while I was growing up. I think it had been and gone. Was there kind of a period there where it never came up and it had completely left your life, or did people kind of continue to contact you throughout the 90s and 2000s about it?
Completely left. It
Yeah.
was after, it might have been like 10 years or so, and all of us, and I think I had asked Gerard, do you think they're ever gonna, bring this back or whatever? And I will say Sam Rizzo,
Yeah.
he is really, in my opinion, the one that has really helped to bring the focus back into Superboy in the shows and everything like that, with his podcast that he's done, and all that.
Yeah.
And he's the one that got me to the convention 3 years ago. So, and it's also great because at the convention, at the Superman Museum, Bizarro is in the museum.
Yes, that's right. I
Yes.
was going to ask you about that. I mean, what was it like kind of interacting with fans and going back to this after so many years and being asked about it? What was that experience like?
It was fun because the people that did come up to, and like to see Bizarro, whatever, and say, "Oh, look who's here," and sitting at the table with the pictures and all that, they knew who Bizarro was. But when I walked around the thing and places and stuff, nobody had any idea who Douglas B. Myers was, or some people didn't know Bizarro. Oh, I played Bizarro in Superboy. What show is that?
Yeah.
Because of the fact that a lot of people have, they took it off the air, and you'd have to see it on streaming now to
Mm.
be able to see it. But I actually think it's getting a lot more views these days because of it was a fun show,
Yeah.
and people are even showing it like to their kids now,
Mm.
so that's positive.
You're absolutely right. It was an incredibly fun show, and I think it did a lot of things for the first time ever. We'd never seen Bizarro in anything other than cartoons and comics at that stage, so you gave that life, and there was plenty of other characters from the comics that were in Superboy for the first time ever, so it occupied, and it's the last Superman related thing that was ever made outside of the Warner Brothers umbrella. It was one of the last times we saw these really practical effects, the wire work we talked about, the makeup. Nowadays they do a lot of that stuff with CGI. So it is
Mhm.
very, very interesting to go back to it and to appreciate it for what it was. Have you? Sorry, go ahead.
And I will say I'm the only person that's ever played Bizarro live. The I guess the Lois and Clark, that was
Mm,
CGI that they did on him, and I know there was another one. I think that was CGI. So
yes.
I'm proud to say that I'm the only one who's put the mask on and did the work. Um,
I was going to ask you that. Have you kind of so there were Dean Cain sort of just played himself, and there was no makeup, there was nothing, as Bizarro in one episode, and it's an okay episode. It's nothing on, it hasn't a patch on what you guys did. Then in Smallville, as you said, there was CGI Tom Welling, and then most recently Superman and Lois, the more recent show, they did it with kind of CGI, and in each of those cases it was the same actor who played Superman was also playing Bizarro, whereas in your show you had two actors.
right.
Have you kind of watched those, or
No. I,
yeah?
I saw the one Lois and Clark. I
Yes.
saw that one because that was going to be the first one after me,
Mm,
and I went, "Oh, I got to watch this one."
yeah.
And after I watched it, I just went, okay." Not the acting, just the
The approach,
Bizarro part. I just went, "Okay,
for
I think
sure.
I got that one covered."
Well, we're recording this in June of 2025. The new Superman movie is set to come out a month from now, and there are pretty strong rumors that a certain character in it may, in fact, turn out to be Bizarro. We don't know that for sure yet, but will you be going to see the new movie, and are you excited?
I will go see it. I think it's July 11th, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll probably catch up that first week or so up here, but also living up in the mountain too. It's not going to be packed when we go, so that'll be nice.
That's amazing. Well, listen, is there anything you'd like to say to kind of sum up the Superboy experience? What it meant for you as an actor or as a person?
So I mean, so being Bizarro was, as an actor, it was fun. It was amazing. I got to be myself. I got to be other characters, and I got to interact with all those people. And a lot of the people that like the Bizarro character have always come to me with that. I just kind of felt sorry for you because that's what
Mm,
he was. He was an imperfect duplicate of
mm,
Superboy. In the original, the 56 comics, Bizarro comes from the fourth dimension. So
mm,
he's a dimensional character. Here, his brain is scrambled because when they shoot the red rose and it turns to be a white rose, it's the same effect. I had everything was turned around and backwards and stuff for me. So people had, I wasn't mean to Superboy or bad. We're just
no,
mischievous, is what we always say. So people always had that kind of like, oh, Bizarro, kind of thing. So that made me feel good that I touched some hearts and gave some people a moment of going, it's not such a bad guy.
absolutely. It's
So
it's it's a really sympathetic portrayal, and I think the show was kind of ahead of its time in how sympathetic it was with the character, and I think you can almost view Bizarro as being sort of an allegory for people with learning difficulties, and they are
Sure.
able to learn and they are able to accomplish great things. They just have to do it at a different level and a different pace. And I really admire the show for doing that, and especially the episode what we talked about where you turn into yourself, you turn into BLUESKY, and he has all this advanced intelligence and all that. But then later on, they cycle back to Bizarro as he was, and he is just as good that way. It just takes him a little bit longer, and we see him learning, and we see him learning how to read and all that, and he appreciates the people around him. It's such a fitting end for the character. I wanted to ask you, I'm not sure how many people have asked you this before, but I was on your IMDb earlier on. I am a huge Miami Vice fan as well, and I noticed you have a couple of credits on that. Can you talk a bit about that?
Oh, that was actually probably one of my very first things out of Miami to shoot. And that back then I was small little parts, and it was great to cut my teeth on that show, to be honest. But it was I was a nobody, nobody at that time. I was just some guy that, here, we're paying you $150 for the day to come do this. But I mean, back in the day, I mean, I remember Don Johnson was what a womanizer. If you didn't wear a skirt, he wouldn't talk to you. So, but as Mr. Silver and my characters, I've been friends with Gloria Stefan for over 40 years now. I've been friends with Sylvester Stallone for over 35 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I've traveled all over the world, and I performed at the '96 Olympics in Atlanta. I've been all the way to Dubai. I've been all to every Central and South America country there is, just about, as my silver character. So, that provided me a really good background for doing all of this acting and being out in front of public.
Well, I can tell you, here in Dublin on Grafton Street, we have a great tradition of street mimes and robots and all that kind of thing. So you'd be more than welcome to come along over here and try out Mr. Silver here. We'd love to see it.
Well, I'll give you let's see. So the last show that I did as Mr. Silver was probably, I think, 6 years ago, and it was in Texas, and I was at the qualifying for the Junior Olympics, and it was at a stadium, a college stadium. And when they called my name, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Silver, I come walking out in the stadium, and a sandstorm hit.
Oh, no.
I'm not kidding you. The skies were brown. My magic was all on a table outside, getting ready to perform. It was basically for all the parents and the kids that were up in the stands, and the kids that were excuse me, they were behind me, all watching the show from behind. But when I started walking out and the winds hit, the table and my magic went flying down this the thing. I'm actually had to break character because I'm trying to pick up magic so if I had 15 tricks there, I wound up with 6.
Oh my
And so I was performing that. When I was done, I had sand and grit all in my makeup. And as soon as I finished the show, ladies and gentlemen, please go inside. We'd like everybody to go inside. This is a storm now. I'm going, oh, great. So, but I have been kind of on a diet since January, and
Okay.
I actually, as of 2 days ago, I am now the same weight that I was as Mr. Silver for almost 30 years, and
Wow.
I vowed in July to put my silver suit on and have some fun.
Amazing.
So
The return of Mr. Silver.
I'm going to do, just for fun, I'm just going to do a little, a couple songs, do some, because my show, it was I did robotics with music, magic, pyrotechnics, and a laser show. That was if you look me up on YouTube, look up Mr. Silver, the robotic performer, and you'll see my stuff there. So sometime in July, just for fun, I'm going to put the suit on and do a little show,
Awesome.
and I'll put it up on video.
Have you got any other projects like that you'd like to plug?
Well, no, not like that, but I do actually. This is an interesting one. When I left, I was in Miami when we shot all that, and eventually I said I need to be in LA to get my career, to the next level. And when I got out there, Rob and I lived very close to Rob and his wife Jennifer, so I was over there all the time and helped him. I mean, I worked in his studio doing other prosthetic things and stuff, which was just an amazing experience. But we are. I just forgot what was the question. I forgot.
Oh,
where we
I
were
was
going.
asking about. I think I know where you're going with this.
Other
Though.
projects.
Is this Iron Man 3?
Was yeah, Iron Man. I'm Mr. Silver's in Iron Man 3. If you watch the video not on TV because they edit it for TV. So
Mm,
about 22 minutes in, when they go to the Grauman's Chinese Theater, they pan across and I'm performing, doing my stuff. And they called me to be in the movie, and they made me a new silver suit. They said we
amazing.
want our own silver suit for you. So they made me a silver suit. But so Rob and I, like I said, we've been friends still ever since then. Rob, so I'll make a long story short. Rob was doing the dinosaurs for the movie Dinosaur for Disney, and he had to make,
Mm,
they were, like this, and so they could scan them and everything. So one day I went into the studio, and there was one of the brontosauruses about this big, and it was in the trash. And I picked it up and I said, "Why is this in the trash? I wish I had it with me right here. I don't. I wish," and it had a flat back, but the rest of it was all a dinosaur and squishy and everything. And I said, "This would be amazing on the wall." So believe it or not, Rob, about a year ago, said, "You want to get back to what you were talking about?" And I said, "Sure." So we've now, the video's done. We are actually I've got a company who is trying to get us to the right toy company. But what we have now is on a wall in my granddaughter's room. It's a 6 foot by 4 foot magnetic wall piece that looks like Jurassic dinosaurs. And Rob has made four more dinosaurs, and they all are flat backed and they're magnetic and they all stick
wow.
to the wall. So now kids can play with all these toys all on the wall, and they're not on the ground. And we're going to do, sky with birds, oceans
Mm,
with fish, landscapes, all of that kind of stuff. So about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I finally hired the company. I've already done the video. We've already done all the samples, everything, and we're ready to start talking about licensing with the company. So
amazing.
that's Rob and I's next project. Yeah.
I'm kind of at that age now where a lot of my friends are starting to have toddlers and things, and I can think of two or three of them who love dinosaurs and would love something like that on their wall. So
And it's great again because we'll do all different kind of genres, but now the toys are on the wall, stuck to the
mm,
wall, and not on the ground.
yeah,
But so it's everybody who's seen it so far. I'll send you a link,
absolutely, yeah.
so you can have a peek at it, what it is.
So we are going to see the return of Mr. Silver before long. If the opportunity ever presented itself, would you be interested in putting the prosthetics back on for Bizarro in some
Oh,
capacity?
absolutely. Oh yeah, that would be fun. We've actually talked about possibly next year, and actually I was just talking to Morgan, who's the head of the Superman Museum and all that. So we're trying to see if Rob and I can get together at the same time, and then while we're there, we will actually do a
Amazing,
prosthetic makeup. So people
amazing.
can actually watch the whole process. I don't know if I would get a Superman suit, to put on. So we might have to think of something else as far as that's concerned, unless Sam Rizzo wants to let me borrow, one of the old suits that he has.
I'm sure we can figure something out there, guys. If anyone's listening, super costumes, hook this man up, please.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, it would be fun.
well, listen, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you, Douglas. I tip my hat to you once again. I think the Bizarro episodes of Superboy are some of the strongest of the whole series, and it is definitely one of the strongest depictions of the character in other media. So congratulations for all the work you did. I am going to ask one small favor of you. We heard you do Bizarro's voice a little while ago, and I was blown away. So we ask all of our guests to do an intro message for the podcast. So I'm going to write it out here in the chat. Would you mind saying that for me, please?
Oh, I see it down here now. Hold on, let me. All right, so I'll say this, but yeah, I'm gonna have to read a little bit. Me and Bizarro, Douglas Myers here, and you are listening to the All Star Superfan Podcast.
Incredible. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and we if you were open to it, we'd love to have you back on to discuss kind of specific episodes or anything like that, and rewatch and relive former glories if you'd be interested.
Okay, I'd be happy to, but here's one of my this was my favorite moment, I think, in Bizarro's thing, and I'll do this for you, and it was on
Yeah.
the rooftop, and it was when I screamed that boy on top of that roof that day, it just resonated with me, and I always remember that. I thought it was so much fun.
Amazing.
All
Well, listen, have a
right. Well,
fantastic day, and thank you again, and we'll talk soon. All the best.
all right. Have a great one. Thank you so much, Rob. See ya.
Once again, if you enjoyed this week's episode of All Star Superfan, please don't forget to check out our Patreon, where you can listen to the first 4 episodes of Superboy, a podcast for the 90s. Each episode covers 1 episode from Season 1 and 1 episode from Season 3, so we've already covered The Bride of Bizarro, one of the high watermarks of the show. And stay tuned for upcoming episodes where we'll be talking about the landmark 2-parter, Roads Not Taken. You're definitely not going to want to miss that. But for now, stay safe, stay super, and watch out for any weird-looking pigeons out there.
Viacom.